now.
Ooh.
Perfect.
Got
And perfect. Welcome, Guy Fong. Welcome to Masterchef Rewind. So again, good to see you. Welcome in. Once again, folks, my name is John Leung. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you've never been before, welcome in. Make yourself comfortable. If you are, no matter who you are, again, welcome in. If you are watching from other platforms, we are on Twitch 3 times a week, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we're also on YouTube and all the other lovely platforms as well too. And this little podcast that we're doing was begun to mark 10 years of me being on MasterChef season 1. But again, the scope of this, we've actually expanded a little bit because tonight our guest is not, at least I don't believe so anyway, unless of course Elizabeth will correct me on this one. Elizabeth Chorney-Booth, who is a food writer for the Calgary Herald, which is my hometown newspaper of record. And she has seen a lot of amazing restaurants. She's seen a lot of amazing chefs. And she's going to, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some of the restaurants that she's run into that have been owned, or or some of the food that she's tasted from contestants, not just from MasterChef, but also from shows like Top Chef or Wall of Chefs as well too. But again, we'll definitely get into that a little bit. Once again, folks, if you do, again, make yourself comfortable. But again, let's actually introduce our guests as well too here. So again, good evening, Elizabeth. How are you doing today? Good to see you.
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited to be on your podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for doing this as well too. I mean, we, when I approached you as well too, I was a little nervous as well too. So I was just like, oh my god, like my first time, I didn't know if Elizabeth was going to agree to this as well too. So I'm like, she's like a big restaurant reviewer. Like, is she gonna say yes or she's gonna say no, not this time or something like that? I'm like, I was so nervous as well too. But actually, just for context as well too, Elizabeth, would you be able to give the Guy Fong, who are the Cantonese name for my viewers, a little bit of background about yourself as well too, if you can.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a food writer. I'm currently the restaurant columnist for the Calgary Herald. So I'm in there every week. I like to say I have to write about a restaurant every week for the rest of my life, or until I retire at least. But I've always been a writer and media person. It's kind of the only thing I can do is write about stuff. I used to write about music for a long time, and then I got a little too old for that, I think, to be out in rock clubs every night. So I switched over to food writing and restaurant writing. So I've been writing about food for probably at least 10 years, almost full time. I write for Avenue Magazine here in Calgary. I'm on the CBC once a month, talking about food trends. And then I also write about food and travel for places like the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail. And as I like to say, whoever will have me. So yeah, I eat out a lot, and I feel like it's my duty to share the knowledge of my experiences with people, because what's the point of knowing so much about local restaurants if you can't tell people where to eat?
Exactly, right. So again, in a way, also, I mean, again, to use the new term, I guess, the original influencer, I guess, right? The food influencer. I said that correctly, or am I
Yeah.
way out to lunch at this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's like old school media and influencing have a lot of overlap, right? Like I kind of joke sometimes that I'm a little too young to have like a really viable newspaper career, but I'm too old to be an influencer. So it's like sort of in that weird sweet spot where I kind of go on both sides. Like I do a local food newsletter called Who's Hungry Calgary. So that's kind of more on the social media influencing side, but I'm like a trained writer journalist. So as long as newspapers still exist, I will try to write for them.
That's awesome as well too, and I mean, just listening to your CV as well too, or resume. I mean, and like, So I mean, hey, we got an A-class writer here with us this evening, Guy Fong. So I mean, oh my goodness, and us too. So I mean, and I mean it as well too, Liz. Elizabeth. I'm not saying that just to be glib as well too. But anyway, so again, again, so our the podcast is a little bit more about reality TV, or more specifically, reality cooking television. Again, I just kind of to establish as well too is what are some of your favorite shows that are out there? It's not just on Food Network, but also on maybe say other networks as well too. What are some of your favorite shows?
Yeah, like them. I think a lot of people sometimes dog competition shows and say, I wish Food Network would just get back to cooking shows. But I really like them. Like when I was a teenager, that was when the original Japanese Iron Chef came out, and that is what made me, I think that's what got me to where I am now. Like I watched that show and I was like, I want to be, that fortune teller on that judging panel. Like I want to eat this food. This is what I want to do. And I mean, I've never been a judge on Iron Chef or anything, but I think my job is kind of as close to it gets. Like this is how I've been able to eat that level of food, at least sometimes. So I've always loved these shows. I like, it's sort of like sports for people who like cooking, right?
It is actually, yeah. Speaking of which was too, right? So wearing my cavalry shirt as well too. That makes a whole heck of a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, like I like the excitement of the Olympics and stuff. I'm not really a sports person, but I feel like reality TV cooking shows kind of do the same thing. So, as a restaurant person, I like Top Chef a lot. I think especially Top Chef Canada, any Canadian who works with restaurants a lot, you get to see some of your friends on TV once in a while. I don't actually have the Food Network at home anymore. Like I don't have cable, but I always watch it when I'm in a hotel room. Like if I'm traveling for work, I used to watch CNN. I can't take it anymore. So I always watch the Food Network when at the end of the day in a hotel room. It's almost always Beat Bobby Flay when I turn it on. And I love that show.
Seen a lot of it though, and I think you and I both know Nicole Gomez as well too, who was on Top Chef as well too, right? Did you watch that episode at all, or did you see her on there?
I haven't seen it because I don't have the Food Network. So I can't watch it on demand. And so I'll watch like 8 episodes of Beat Bobby Flay in a row, hoping that it'll be the Nicole episode, but it never has been. But I still like that show a lot because I like how the challengers get to name their signature dish. And I think that's really interesting. I really like seeing what the dish they choose is going to be, because sometimes it's a total surprise. So yeah, in general, like I do really like a lot of the shows. Like they're fun, they're exciting. It's food, which is always fun to watch. And
anyway, yeah. Sorry, I was just agreeing you on that point as well too, right? So and of course, both of us are based in Calgary as well too, right? So you've had a lot of chances to kind of talk with and you, of course, me myself, of course, not toot my own horn. I've been on MasterChef Canada, and actually, if you can, could you maybe tell us about some of the experience that you've had with some of the Calgarians, or even some of the Canadians that have been on these shows as well too? So some of the chefs, or even some of the home cooks. Like, what are some of your experiences with them?
Yeah, it's funny, like especially Top Chef Canada, of course. Like there's been a ton of Calgary chefs on there.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I think it's how a lot of us found out about Connie D'Souza at Charcut.
Yes.
Sort of was her rise to fame. There's people like Pierre Lamiel who was on that show, and I mean he's not even really a restaurant chef, but he kind of got some following for his other businesses on there. I kind of like that with a lot of the shows. Like I feel like when they first came out of the gate, a lot of sort of the usual suspects were on. Like like with MasterChef, it was people who were just like, okay, I'm raring to go. This is like yourself, this is my time to do it. Whereas I think on more recent seasons, it's either people who have been thinking about it for a really long time and had to kind of be talked into it, or younger people who don't necessarily have the same kind of recognition. So it has been kind of interesting to me how as seasons go by, those shows change a little bit with the kinds of people who are on them. But yeah, I mean, even obviously like the Calgary people who have been on, most of them I've been familiar with, but
Yep.
it's fun too to go to collaboration dinners, and it's like you meet Danny Smiles or people like that, like who come into town and cook, and I'm like, oh, I recognize you from TV, and then you get to actually taste their food and go, okay, like you deserve to make it far in the show because this is pretty good.
Oh, and we have and we I think what was it? I think we've had I think I mean Darren McLean alone as well too. One of a couple of a couple of the Guy Fong have always mentioned Darren McLean because he was on Netflix, right? The Netflix's Final Table, which I think was probably one of the biggest shows out there as well too, even though it was on Netflix, right? But I mean, have you been to any of Darren's collabs with some of the people that he was on Final Table with at all, or have you been to any of those dinners?
I haven't been to those dinners because and I mean no shade to Darren, they are pricey. Like they're not inexpensive, and he can do that because they're these high level chefs, like some of the top chefs in the world really, and he's gotten them to come here because of his time on that show, and he did really well on that show.
Oh, he did fantastically, yeah, absolutely.
I actually I wasn't traveling with Darren, but I was on the same plane as him once. We were both going to Mexico for different reasons. And when we got off the plane in Calgary, there were fans. Like actually he was recognized by people, and I was like, wow, like because you never know who's watching the show when it's like a guy from your own town, right? Like but obviously enough people watched that show that he was recognized by like this gaggle of teenage girls in the Calgary airport. So yeah, I mean that show, I don't think he could run an 8-seat restaurant if he hadn't been on that show, because people will fly from around the world to go to that restaurant if they're big fans.
And I'm sure you probably tried to get a reservation to Shokunin on Friday night. That is a bit of a CHALLENGE, if you know what I mean, as well too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, holy smokes! I mean, hi, can I get a reservation? And hi, Shokunin, can I get a reservation and on Friday night? No, as well too. So it's like,
yeah.
I know, but that's a good thing as well too. But again, we're going to delve a little bit more deeper as well too. Is what are some of the actually? I mean, it does sound like you've had a chance to talk with Connie. You've talked to maybe say Nicole, or maybe even I think some other competitions. What are some of the experiences you've heard from some of these chefs, or have you heard anything at all about that?
Yeah,
being on the shows. Sorry, and being on the shows.
Because I've talked to a lot of them, and for a while, especially during sort of the pandemic years, I'd interview like the Top Chef contestants before the show aired. So they'd already have the experience, and they couldn't talk much about it usually, but you can sometimes read between the lines. And I've heard from a lot of people it's really difficult. I mean, you know what it's like. Like it's on TV, it looks okay, you have like 15 minutes to make this dish, and then they judge it right away, and like your day is done in a few hours. But from what I've heard, it's a lot of actually standing and waiting around. Like the judging process is really arduous, really long. And I've talked to some people who have not liked it, like have said, this was not for me. I think people learn a lot about themselves, right? Like I think some people learn that maybe TV isn't for them, maybe cooking under pressure isn't for them. It's not what they enjoy. And they don't go on to do more, and maybe it even makes them look at the industry in a different way. But then you've got people like your Nicole Gomez's, and she keeps coming back for more, right? Like she obviously
does. Yeah.
Obviously loves it. Like it lights some kind of fire under her, and she loves the competition. So I think it has really alerted some chefs to look inward and say, I'm great at cooking, but I'm also really good at being on television, and I'm good at media. And they kind of realize, what some wider potential that their careers might have.
And speaking of some of these as well too, I mean, we've been kind of been harping on what our kind of our what's the word? I'm sorry, my Englishing is not very good right now as well too. Our common acquaintance, Nicole Gomez. What would you be able to? Can you also maybe tell us about some of the other stories that we have as well too? I mean, I could tell them, but I mean, some of the stories that you've heard as well too, like some of the more success stories as well too, like especially here in Calgary, or some of the ones you've met as well too. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about those?
About success stories from people
Yeah,
being,
like
yeah, I mean, I think in Canada at least, like one of the gold standards for MasterChef is Mary Berg. Like
ooh, yep.
she has her career. I think she's hosting a reality show now. Like I saw her hosting some baking show that actually a gal from Calgary was on as well, and I think did really well, if not
I
won.
believe I've seen it. I think it's called Cross Country Cake Off. Yes, Cross Country Cake Off. Yes, I did see that as well too. So I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet. But it's probably somewhere deep in my list as well too. So I mean, I got so many things to do. Honestly, I haven't watched as well too. Actually, now that you mentioned Mary Berg as well too, is actually more specific to MasterChef as well too. What are some of the have you met? What are some of the experience that you've had with like MasterChef contestants? Besides myself, of course, right? So you know.
Yeah, not a ton. Because I'm so restaurant focused, right? That it's,
Of
but I
course,
mean,
right?
there's very big. And is there not another contestant from Calgary, Jillian somebody? I did meet somebody on a at a dinner or something who had also been on MasterChef.
Gillian Ray, I believe.
Yeah, Jillian
Yes.
Cooks, I think. Yeah, and
Yes.
she was lovely, and she was another person, like a home cook,
Mhm. Of
um, as MasterChef contestants are,
course.
who kind of realized that this was a thing that worked for her, and that she had larger media potential because of the show. Like, I think Chef especially really does open a lot of doors for folks, because I don't know what your experience was like, but I think a lot of people who have a passion
Mhm.
for cooking and food but aren't really part of the industry, aren't part of the TV industry necessarily, it kind of gives them that
Mhm.
window into, oh, wait a minute, I can actually do this.
Mhm.
Which I think is a fairly life-changing thing. Like, I think a lot of us are told,
Mhm.
um being in the spotlight, being in the kitchen, those things aren't, quote unquote real careers. But a show like MasterChef is like, oh, actually no, you can do this, and you can make a life out of this.
Mhm.
Was that your feeling after being on the show?
I kind of think so. Honestly, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of dark spots there as well too. So I mean, again, I don't think I think I don't know how much I've told you, Elizabeth, as well too. Like I've told you like off the record as well too, right? So it led me to a. The show didn't again it was took me on a long 7-year detour into a dark place I don't think we want to talk about as well too.
Mm.
But but then again, I mean, the pandemic, it led me into the industry. It taught me a lot of different skills. And you know what? I mean, and Elizabeth, I mean, I know I talk about, I did mention to you, I'm trying to get this whole pop up thing together. I'm really hoping you're going to be one of my first guests as well too. So again, knock on wood on that one. But it's just like kind of getting it all together. So it's just like, and honestly, and that started with Twitch as well too, right? So teaching people how to enjoy Asian food, or even make dishes that they may have never thought that it would be possible for them to make as well too, right? It'd be like, or something like a sesame noodle like that I recently made. Is like, and then I had multiple people in the chat say, wow, it's actually that simple. I'm like, and that's just the beginning as well too, right? So, but again, it did take me a lot as well too. Actually, now that again, I'm hoping we're not going to diverse too much into this as well too. But did you hear anything like, especially for some of these more professional shows, or even again, you may not have heard a lot from a MasterChef, but for some of these shows as well too, did you hear about a lot of these like things that like people getting not so good things about their experience after television, like or like after the lights have faded, maybe some of the more less good things about. Have you heard any stories about that at all? Or
Yeah, I'm not like necessarily super close, like besties with
Mhm.
many people who have been on the shows. Like I have heard some people, didn't like it. Like, yeah. And afterwards, I mean, yeah, I don't know. You always see the success stories, right? Like
I know,
I
right?
think
Yeah.
about all the people who have been contestants on those shows, and you can name the ones that have cookbooks out or have started their own catering company or are, doing podcasts and Twitch channels and things like that. But the ones who completely have faded away, you kind of forget them because a decade of these shows, a decade or more, that's hundreds of people. So what has happened to the ones that we don't think of anymore? I don't know.
And I think that's probably and again, I know it sounds like a little, I know it's a difficult topic, and you know what, I do believe I do have someone else who's going to be coming in and talk a little bit more about this. I do have a mental health expert coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. So I probably reached a little bit too far out of your areas of expertise as well too. Actually, and so I guess probably time to go
Well,
too, right? So anyway, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
But you're right. I mean, because like I think there's lots of stories about reality TV in general, not being great for people. Like I know I have talked to a few people, and I don't know what MasterChef was like 10 years ago, but I've talked to a few people before they've gone on shows, like talking about sort of the mental health screening and stuff that goes into it. So I mean, I think these shows are aware that they're not great for some people. Like I mean, I think they know it's an issue. Are they doing enough about it? I have no idea really, but I can't imagine I mean, even just my very limited, time in the spotlight as a writer, it's not always, being in the public eye can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people, and a lot of people aren't ready for it.
Exactly. Because sometimes, I think for me, honestly, it was when and again, as my mom actually taught me as well, as my mommy actually taught me as well too. When the oyster is given to you and has a pearl in it, you gotta reach for it, right? So, and then sometimes it's like you gotta reach for it, ready or not, as well too, right? Which I feel like some chefs do, and then some people reach for the brass ring, and some folks like Connie and Darren and Nicole, and actually I'm trying to also think of another name as well too. I'm kind of thinking. I'm trying to think of other names as well too that were really also did a lot of really well. But it feels like those three names are probably the biggest ones, especially here in Calgary. I think. Eh?
There's Jinhee Lee did pretty well.
Right, yes.
And I think Duncan Lee was on Iron Chef. He was on a new reboot of Iron Chef at some point too.
Iron Chef Canada, yes, yes,
yeah,
Iron Chef Canada, yes. So
yeah, and I'm trying. I mean, I think almost every season has had some Calgarians on them, but I think those are the ones who have been the best, like, or have done the best and kind of left the biggest mark.
And I mean, and you know what, sorry, now I'm just stumbling over as well too. And I know you, I know we talk about as well too. Is what do you feel like what it would be the impact for some of the, maybe say, up and coming cooks as well too, like maybe people who don't want to be on the show. Like what do you feel like would be the impact that some of these chefs who actually have made their mark like this, like the Nicoles and the Jinhees, what feel like that? What's the image that gives to up and coming cooks, like some maybe say some little PCAK student or professional cooking student at SAIT? Like what kind of image does that give to them as well too, and how can that actually benefit them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't always benefit them. Like it makes me sad when I see young chefs go, oh yeah, like I need to be on TV to kind of make my career. Because I remember, and I think, that whole celebrity chef thing is fading a little bit. And I actually do enjoy that, like on Top Chef specifically, a lot of the chefs who are on there now are lesser known and aren't necessarily, in this superstar trajectory. But when Connie and Nicole and those people were on, I remember looking at some like really well-known and well-regarded chefs in Calgary, and it almost seemed weird that they hadn't been on any of these shows. And I think they recognized it wasn't for them. It wasn't going to work with their personalities, but it almost seemed like, well, everyone's doing it, right? So I wouldn't want young chefs to think that they have to do it, because because it is definitely not for everybody. And for some people, it's a huge time commitment that they could be using, you know, honing their chops in an actual restaurant. And
Mm.
if they don't make it past the first few rounds, it's a lot of attention for something that maybe was not a positive experience
Mhm.
for them. But I also do think it's, again, if you kind of want to grab that brass ring, it can be really good for people's careers. You know, I've seen some people who have been on the shows and they end up doing like catering companies or personal chef services, which that's a really great way to drum up clients for those kind of things. And I think it just also like we've seen with people like Darren McLean or some of these people who have been on Top Chef Canada, they make really good connections with other chefs around the country,
Oh,
around
they
the
do,
world,
yeah.
which which I think can be really beneficial for people.
And honestly, I think and at the end of the day, I kind of feel like it also kind of enhances the reputation of Calgary as well too, right? So, and again, one of the big things I don't think I ever told you as well too, right? One of the big things I also want to do was also kind of change the perception of people's thought of Calgary as well too, right? As this meat and potatoes town. Of course, if I had potentially won, I mean, be like everybody would be coming to Calgary for some of the world's best fusion dim sum, but I guess that never happened as well too, right? But well, that's up to CTV as well too, right? I guess CTV didn't want that narrative, but again, we don't. We're not going to talk about that one as well too, right? But yeah, and again, I know it's I think we're kind of coming up to our but the end here. Do you have any final thoughts, or maybe say any other and maybe any other final thoughts, or maybe any ideas, maybe say for people who maybe are in who have actually competed in these shows and are kind of looking for maybe say this a push, or maybe say some advice as to where to go after the shows. Where do they go after the lights of the cameras faded? What are some of the advice you would give?
Yeah, you know, I don't know, like because I'm not a chef, so
Mm,
I don't actually work in the industry. I just
mm,
watch it. One thing that I think has been really interesting too is seeing people who are kind of interested in having that sort of media presence, like some
mm.
sort of public persona as a food professional, and are turning to social media to almost do their own shows, like be it on Twitch or Instagram or TikTok or those things. Like, I think that's a really great way to kind of like still keep some semblance of a private life. Like, it's not as out there as being I'm on TV, but you can still share things in a visual way, and you can share your personalities. Like one thing I like about these shows is I think you'd emailed me and asked me to think of some memorable dishes from some of those shows.
Yes, exactly.
I
Yes, some of them.
Yeah, but I don't remember most of what they cook. I always remember ice cream doesn't go well. Like
Mhm.
that's my biggest takeaway is don't make ice cream on these shows because
Yep.
it's
Mhm.
wilted. But I think you know, it's the personalities that really drive these shows. So I think if you're a chef and you love to or a home cook and you love to share food and you love to share techniques, and you have that personality that shines, you can continue that on after your TV moment is over in different ways. I think you just have to, you know, have the bravery. Oops, sorry about that. You have to have the bravery to do that, and you have to just make it happen for yourself because there's lots of avenues out there to keep it rolling if sharing your personality that way is what makes you so excited about being on these shows in the first place.
And hey, I mean, look at where you and I are right now, right? I mean, you and I mean, we're talking on a YouTube podcast as well too, right? So I mean, on top of Twitch food and drink as well too, right? So or Twitch food and drink streamer as well too, right? So, but again, that's just a step one as well too. But well, I mean, at least for that's my story anyway as well too, right? But again, Elizabeth, I do want again, I think that do you have any final thoughts before we kind of wrap up a little bit here at all, or
Just you know, I do really love these shows. I think they're exciting, and I
mm,
know, like I said earlier, there's always people who are like, I just want to see, you know, Bobby Flay cook a steak on his grill, and I want to see, have instruction. But I think these shows are exciting, and anything that makes people just excited about food makes me happy.
Awesome. And exactly. I mean, because food is what makes the world go round, and hey, I mean, if someone's dueling with food, it's all gravy, baby. I guess that's one way to put it as well too. But anyway, but again, Elizabeth, I do want to thank you all. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for agreeing to this. Again, I know it's a little bit outside of your expertise. So again, I do really want to thank you for your time this afternoon. This evening here. So again, I was about to say afternoon, but this evening I realized that it's not. It's starting to the light's starting to fade as well too. So again, thank you so much, Guy Fong. Again, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I really hope, and again, I do want to say, when we finally, and again, when I get my crap together, when I get my crap together, I really hope that when I finally do my first pop up, I will see you there as well too. I really hope that you will be there, and hopefully give me a nice review as well too.
Yeah. Well, and it's always a pleasure to talk about anything food related. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate you asking.
Awesome. Maybe when I do this pop up, maybe Elizabeth will pop up during the stream while we live stream the pop up as well too. So again, hashtag knock on wood on that one as well too. But again, once again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here today. Once again, that is Elizabeth Chorney-Booth from the Calgary Herald, Toronto Star, Avenue Magazine here in Calgary, an amazing food writer, a restaurant critic. And we were just talking a little bit about the experience of some of her experience was with the reality TV cooks and the impact of reality TV on the industry as well too. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, Guy Fong. Thank you so much. I will see you all next week for another interview. Please, of course, join our Discord or follow us on Twitter or even on Twitch, Instagram to find out who is coming up to visit the Tea House for a conversation next. Again, thank you so much. Wherever you are, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are watching on Twitch, back to you, John. We'll see you. Hoping dinner was good. And for all other platforms, thank you so much. If you haven't done so already, please follow and subscribe. All that other good stuff as well too. Again, thank you so much, and we will hopefully see you again in the very near future. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And